Web Marketing That Works podcast, episode number 85, with today's guest, Steve Gordon.
Welcome to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. Come behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments and listen in as amazing guests confess the truth about what really works. Now, here are your hosts, Adam Franklin and Toby Jenkins.
My name's Adam Franklin, and you are listening to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. Thanks for joining me today. This is the show for people who love marketing on the web. I'll take you behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments to share the good, the bad, and the ugly. This podcast is brought to you by our book, which is called Web Marketing That Works. And the gift for you is the bonus 33 free marketing templates that go with it. So you can get your hands on those at bluewiremedia.com.au/book. In today's show, I'm speaking with Steve Gordon. Now, he is the author of Unstoppable Referrals, 10 times the referrals with half the effort. He is also the publisher of The Unstoppable CEO, the leadership journal for growing firms, the editor of 3 business newsletters, and has published hundreds of articles on marketing and selling high-ticket products and services in high-trust transactions. I finished reading his book when I was recently overseas, and as you'll discover in the show, so much of Steve's philosophy with getting referrals is, well, it's counterintuitive to what the traditional model is, but it's also very much aligned to the inbound marketing model of publishing content that's useful for people in order to attract the right people into your business. So on that note, let's get on with the show with Steve Gordon. It's Adam Franklin here, and I am joined by Steve Gordon, the author of Unstoppable Referrals. How are you, Steve?
Doing wonderful, Adam. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. Firstly, thanks for writing the book, Unstoppable Referrals. It was so enlightening for me because I guess I've probably had a misconception about referrals for a long time, and I've often felt uncomfortable asking for them, and I've also felt uncomfortable being asked for them, and I could never quite put a finger on why, because everybody always said that referrals are the lifeblood of most businesses, and they are, but at the same time it was weird because it felt weird getting asked that question and asking that of other people. Can you quickly kick off this interview by telling us why it is uncomfortable?
Sure. Well, and you said referrals are the lifeblood of any business, and it is absolutely true that they are. New York Times did a study a number of years ago, and they found that 65% of all business done here in the U.S. was done on the basis of referral. So if you think about all of the money that's spent on advertising and all the other ways that you could get a customer, that's kind of crammed into that 35% that's left over. It's a huge number. And in my mind, the scarier part of that is a number that John Jantz, who is in a mastermind group with both of us, and he wrote a book called The Referral Engine. And in his research leading up to it, he went out and polled about 3,000 business owners and asked them, the usual question, do you get most of your business from referral? And they said, yeah, sure, we do. So he kind of backed up the New York Times number. But he asked a second question, which I think is really much more informative. He asked them, do you have a system to influence those referrals that are coming in? And I think the number he came back with was 79.9%. So 80% said, no, we don't have any system. So in my mind, that's why this topic is so important, because you have on the one hand, the majority of businesses that get most of their business from referral, and then you have 80% of them that aren't doing anything about it. And the point that you bring up, this uncomfortable feeling that, you get, I get it. It's the most common response that we get when we do our own surveys and we ask this open-ended question, what's the biggest barrier that you have to getting more referrals? And the number one answer is that they just don't know how to ask because they feel uncomfortable. And the reason that we feel uncomfortable when asking for referrals is really very simple. The construct of referrals, the way that the whole system works that we've put together for this is designed to be successful only when a sale is made. So if you ask me to refer you to a friend of mine, now I'm a happy customer of yours, Adam, and that friend may or may not need internet marketing help. I don't know. So now I've got to go and make some assumptions about my friend and about the friend's business, and hopefully I'm on the money. But if I'm not on the money, and I kind of sort of, cajole them and suggest, oh, they really need to meet with you because I think I'm doing this great thing, and you guys meet, well, I'm sending that friend of mine into a sales meeting. And I don't want to go to a sales meeting. I'm guessing you don't want to go to a sales meeting, and we sell for a living. And I certainly don't want to send a friend whom I'm maybe not 100% sure that they need what it is that you're selling. I don't want to send them into a sales meeting with you because by definition, that meeting is successful if my friend walks away with a lighter wallet when he walked in. So in other words, that transaction happens. And because all of that's going on, it's going on inside my head as the one trying to make the referral. It's going on inside your head, asking me for the referral because you know all of this dynamic. And it's definitely going on in the friends. And because you've got all of that kind of social dynamic happening, it's really often uncomfortable for us to do referrals in sort of the traditional way. And, we can talk about, why that is and some of the reasoning behind it. But I would imagine that everybody listening to this has had that feeling. You've been one of those three people, and it's felt a little weird.
Yeah, it does feel really weird because it feels like you're stitching them up. It feels like that you're kind of sending them into this uncomfortable area where there aren't really many winners. As you said, if it all goes smoothly, then the person you've referred or the person you've put into the meeting walks out with a lighter wallet, and they might at that point in time feel, man, have I made the right decision? Have I just done this out of a sort of sense of obligation or, reciprocity to the people involved? But it's probably going to leave, or at least the buyer, possibly with buyer's remorse, and possibly even the referrer with a bit of discomfort at the fact that, well, I put somebody into this meeting and they've now spent some money, so now there's even more pressure on that relationship going smoothly post-sale. It does, the traditional way like that has got so many elements involved, it's easier to see why people are reluctant to do it. But let's move on to what are the obstacles or the mistakes that stop people getting these referrals? Or what could they be doing better?
We generally make the process of being referred difficult. And what I mean by that is that we expect our clients to suddenly become this very enthusiastic, unpaid and untrained sales force. Now, Adam, I don't know, do you have salespeople in your business?
Not officially. We try to do it ourselves or mainly through our website.
So I was speaking to a group of CEOs last week, and they were larger companies, and everybody in that room had salespeople that they managed. And so I asked these CEOs, well, do you have any trouble getting your salespeople to go out and sell? And every one of them was like, yeah, we've got a few superstars, but the rest of them, we have to kind of go in and motivate them, and we got to spend a lot of time training them both on what it is that we sell and on sales techniques and how to prospect and all of these things. So when we think about referrals, we're sitting there just sort of hoping that our clients who we're not paying most of the time and we're not training them how to refer us well, and we're probably not even explaining to them who would be a good client for us. We're hoping that they're going to go out and get these phenomenal results, and it works, but it could work a lot better. And so what I described in the book is essentially taking back the responsibility that is ours as business people, so that we're very clear about who we want as prospects, and that we're not asking anyone making a referral to do any selling for us, that we're going to create tools that do the selling. And specifically the tool that I recommend in the book is called a referral kit. And we can talk more about that if you'd like, but that's really where the big mistake is. We make this way too difficult, put all this pressure on it. And in the book, I talk about how you can take the pressure away and really simplify this process for the people that you want to send you referrals.
It's a really interesting point you make there, because I was actually chatting with one of my coaching clients yesterday, and they were saying They've got customers who often want to go out, they love the product and they want to go out and on-sell it as resellers, but they don't necessarily do a great job of selling it properly. And they'll go about it all the wrong way, and then all of a sudden the people they're trying to sell it to close their mind off to this particular product. And it's because they're not trained to sell it properly. They're enthusiastic, but there's, typically if they're not given like that referral kit, which we'll talk about shortly, then they're actually doing a lot more damage than good, because they're taking on that responsibility of thinking that they're selling it well when in fact they're not. And if there's that mechanism to actually refer them to this referral kit or some other things like webinars or downloadable content, which I guess can all be part of this referral kit. It's so common that even well-intentioned people that want to spread the word about a product or a service or a company go about it the wrong way, even if they are well-intentioned. So maybe let's dive into the concept of a referral kit and what purpose it serves and how it alleviates a lot of that pressure that goes with the traditional model of referrals.
Yeah, absolutely. So a referral kit it's essentially information that you take and package up in some format that's easy to transfer. Now, it doesn't always have to be information, but probably 95% of the time, maybe a little more than that, that's the best option. And really, this process works best for high-ticket, high-trust, complex sales. If you're selling hamburgers or, in this group I spoke with last week, there was a guy in there that sold Krispy Kreme donuts, which here in the U.S. it's like the best donut ever made.
and here too.
Have a referral problem, right? His product is referable. But for everybody else who's selling stuff that often you can't see and you can't touch, and requires this lengthy buying process and an education leading up to it, a referral kit is really the best way to go about that. And so what we do when I'm working with a client, we package up some information. And in the referral kit, usually we want to put 4 things in there. We want to start with a very clear picture of the ideal client. And then inside the referral kit, we take that picture and we want to cover the problems that ideal client faces or the results that they really want that they can't get on their own. We want to deal with the questions that they have about their situation and about the product. So kind of it's where you would start with any sales process, sort of trying to get in the mind of your prospect, of your future client. Second thing that we put in there is a kind of a glimpse at the solution, the first step of the solution. And I get a lot of pushback from business owners because they don't want to give away everything. They feel like they've got these things that they do, and if they just lay it all out there in their referral kit, that somehow they're going to give away too much and the prospects won't hire them. And I really have 2 answers for that. First, often you're not serving that prospect if they're really early on in the buying process by telling them what the whole solution is. You can kind of give them the big picture, but you don't have to give them all the details. They're not ready for that yet. They need to really understand first and foremost what their problem is and what the consequences of that problem will be for them if they don't do anything about it. So you've just sort of got to give them that first step of the solution. Second answer I usually have to that is that your clients are not the do-it-yourselfers. So, if you're an attorney and you're worried about somebody going out and writing their own contract, taking your referral kit and, reading between the lines and creating their own contract, don't worry about it. That person wasn't going to pay you anyway. They were going to find a way to do it themselves. So, worst case, you've sent some goodwill out into the world. So first thing we do, problems, results, and questions. Second thing is give them the first step to the solution. The third, and really critically important, is we need to tell them how to go deeper. So the purpose of your referral kit is to take that burden of selling to a prospect off of the client or the referral partner that's going to make the introduction for you, so that you've got this information piece, whether it's a book or an audio CD or a podcast or a webinar, however you decide to deliver it, it's something that can do kind of the speaking for you, that can easily be passed on, that your clients and your referral partners can invite people into, so there's very little risk. So this third step is to tell the prospect how they can go deeper with you. And that's usually the conversion point. So if your normal sales process is that, once someone sort of comes into your world, that you need to have an initial meeting with them, a sales meeting like we talked about before, we're still going to have the sales meeting. It's just not going to be the very first step, because that as a first step can be a little intimidating, a little scary. It's got all that pressure that we talked about. First step is they get the referral kit. The referral kit makes the case for them going deeper. And then the fourth thing that we recommend that our clients put into their referral kit is proof. And that's testimonials, that's case studies. That's really what you want to have happen there is you want that prospect who's reading it to feel as if they're looking in a mirror and they're seeing someone who's in their exact situation, that has experienced what they're experiencing, sees that they got a solution from you, and that their life is significantly better after that. And so those are the 4 parts of the referral kit. It's really pretty simple. And it can take a lot of different forms and formats. But the key is you want something that is really easy to pass along or easy to invite people to.
That is really interesting, because I think certainly I find, if people are inclined to DIY or do it themselves, they, yes, they're probably not your clients straight away, but I think very often when they actually do go away and try and do their own legal contracts and they stuff it up and it ends up costing them lots more money than they'd first anticipated, they might then be the people that come back further down the track and go, I might actually get this done properly now that I've realized just how valuable it is if a professional does it instead of doing it myself.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
And then a second part of an observation is that I've been following quite a bit of Sean D'Souza's work, and the whole idea that consumption of material is really critical in terms of a prospect getting to know, like, and trust you. And it's really important, I think, to demonstrate your knowledge and to be really helpful and be free and generous with what you present to people for free or for a low ticket price like a book. Because that way, if people actually read all that material or watch your videos or listen to your podcasts or whatever, then they're much more across your philosophy or your methodology. So they're going to be, I guess, self-educating themselves. And if they're aligned to your way of doing business and your philosophies, then they're going to make for a much easier sale and a much more compatible relationship, as opposed to, feeling scared of giving away the farm and giving away too much information. But I've certainly found personally that the more I can help and be generous, the more the right people anyway want to come and actually do more with me. So I think what I really particularly liked about your book is that a lot of it aligns with at least the philosophies in my book, Web Marketing That Works, in that we advocate that if you can publish information to the web, even if it's a piece of flagship content that is free, that people can download, that same philosophy of yours, that you're giving someone a useful piece of content that helps them solve a problem. There's no pressure, there's no meeting. And if it does actually help them, then they can find out more about you and you can sort of take them on this journey. And in my case, it's typically with email marketing or social media, but it's just the same as if it's a referral kit that somebody hands on to somebody else. It provides them those stepping stones to doing business with you. And what I love about it is that it just completely eliminates any of that sales pressure. People have then got their own, they make their decision, do I want to go for a meeting with Steve or do I want to go for a meeting with Adam? And it's, step 4 or 5 down that buying journey, not that, as you say, that incredibly intimidating first point of contact.
Yeah, I was just going to say, after reading your book and reading a lot of the information you put out on the website and in the podcast, it really occurred to me that our approaches are so complementary, because I look at the way that I've approached referrals as really sort of the inbound or the content marketing model of getting referrals. And we do some of it's done online. A lot of it we advocate doing offline, but we're working with a lot of businesses that have been traditionally offline. And so I look at them as being almost identical processes, but with a slight different perspective. So I do think they work very well together.
Yeah, it's cool to think that inbound marketing works. Well, it works in a non-online sense and in an offline sense as well. It makes total sense.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that I hear an awful lot from folks that kind of doubt whether or not putting out that much information is useful is that, well, nobody will read it. Well, you have a book. I have a book. Now, you tell me, would you rather have a client come to you, a prospect come to you after just being referred cold or after having read your book? Which one converts better?
Yeah, absolutely. Hands down, people who've read the book.
Exactly.
And I can see why people, like I said before, I follow Sean D'Souza. For attendees to buy a ticket to his workshop, it's mandatory that they've read his book called The Brain Audit. And I can completely see why he makes people go through that consumption phase, because then when they get to the workshop, everyone starts at the same level and there's all that foundational stuff that they've done. But the fact of the matter is they become much better clients, that they aren't price sensitive because they have already received the value up front, as opposed to expecting to get the value after they pay. And it's going to be a much more fruitful long-term relationship. And then another point about, not giving away all your information, look at celebrity chefs like Jamie Oliver, for example. They create recipe books and they give away their recipes, and it's a perfectly good business model because not everybody wants to be at home cooking for themselves. They still want to go out to the Jamie Oliver restaurants, or they still want to buy his books. It opens up a market for both sides of the fence. And I agree with anyone that says, if you give away too much information, people will just do it themselves. Well, I don't agree with that. I think the more you teach people, the more they'll want you to do it for them.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So, Steve, how would you recommend we build a system? I mean, we've got the referral kit. What's a good system then for getting that into the hands of other people to distribute on your behalf?
Sure. Well, there are a couple of approaches, and it depends on sort of where you are in the evolution of your business and what you're comfortable with. And so, as I said, I work with a lot of businesses that are really more comfortable sort of they come from the belly-to-belly sort of sales world in the offline world. And what I tell those people is that the best thing you can do is the next time you have a client meeting, you've got your referral kit in hand. Next time you have a client meeting, you should know some things about that client. You should know maybe what trade association they're involved in, or what civic group they may be in. You know some things about them. Do a little bit of research, and if nothing else, just go on LinkedIn and connect with them and then see who they know. And print a list from the civic group that they're in, or the association, or from LinkedIn, and print a list and put it in front of them. I had a client who was selling to doctors, and all of his sales happened face-to-face. They had to. The thing he was selling was really highly regulated and couldn't be sold over the internet. And so he wanted to sell to doctors, and he had a really good doctor client who was an oncologist at a particular hospital. And he went and I said, here's what you do. You go to the website, you find out who all the other oncologists are, because this guy's going to know them. You get that off the directory, the hospital directory, print it out, print 2 copies, put one on the desk in front of him in your next meeting. You keep one, you hand him a highlighter and say, in this case, his referral kit was a book. And he said, I just published this book. I think it's really important. It covers a lot of the things that we've done together, the situations that we've helped, that I've helped you with. And you've said you've been really happy with the solution. And all I want to do is get this book out into the hands of as many people as possible. So I found this list online of people that I think you work with, and I think who on here should get a copy of my book. And the doctor sat down, who had never referred him before, had been a very happy client for quite a number of years and never referred him, sat down and he highlighted 11 names. And so I get an email. We had a coaching call right before his meeting with the client. I get an email about 90 minutes after our coaching call. Subject line is 11. I open it and I'm like, what is this? 11. I open it up and it says, that's how many referrals I got doing what you just told me to do. And he went on to do that in 4 more client meetings that month, ended up generating, I think, 98 referrals in the month, which was like a year's worth of referrals for him. And so that's one method of doing it. I call that reverse prospecting. And I talk about that in the book. So if somebody wants the details, you can go and get sort of detailed instructions on how to do it. I have a client that is a master at it. He does it with LinkedIn. He has his clients come in and tells them, hey, I'd like to go through, with you and see who you know on LinkedIn that we should send the referral kit. And he's got like probably 2 to 3 meetings a week with clients just to go over their LinkedIn profiles and come up with lists of names. And then he sends out his referral kit, and it works like gangbusters for him. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it, if you want to do it with a bit more scale, if you're a little more sophisticated and comfortable with marketing online, is to look for opportunities where you can find people that have an audience. And when you can find somebody that's got an audience, and usually what I like to do to cultivate these referral partners, and I don't really like to call them referral partners because I did lots of networking for a long time. I have kind of a bad taste in my mouth for that term because most of the time it meant somebody that wanted me to send them all of my clients and didn't want to do anything in return. So I like to call them promoters. And the way that I like to go and cultivate promoters is to interview them and refer them first. And so as I was probably a year out from the release of the book and really hadn't started writing, but had started working on some of these ideas, I went and interviewed about 40 different marketing professionals. All of them, were actively marketing online. Each of them had an audience. Some had big audiences, some had small audiences. And I interviewed them all. My only goal was to just help promote them and begin to build a relationship. And I didn't know the book was going to come out. That hadn't all happened yet. But when I finally got to release the book last July, 15 of those people drove, because of the relationship that we had developed, they were happy to drive over 5,000 referrals back to me by sending out my referral kit, which is my book. And I detail this process in the book of how to use interviews to first sort of give value to your promoters and also at the same time to sort of teach them how to do it. Because if they haven't done that sort of promotion before, it helps if you sort of show them how it works and how easy it is. But use the interview as a way to share them first with your audience. And it doesn't matter if you have a huge audience or a tiny audience, everybody wants exposure. And you'll find that only the very, top level A-list people get, super choosy about when they do interviews because there are such demands on their time. But for just about everybody else, I don't know, Adam, it's pretty flattering to be interviewed, right? Like when you asked me to be on this, I was like, wow, this is awesome. I'm going to connect with a whole new group of people on an entirely new continent. And, so I jumped at the chance. And I'm sure you do too when it comes up. And so it's really easy to get folks to do that. And don't go into it with an agenda, like I'm going to, get something from the person, but go in to genuinely promote them and help them. And what you'll find is you will create phenomenal promoter relationships. And you will be able to, when the timing is right, turn the tables and say, okay, hey, I've got something really great to share now, and I think it's a good fit for your audience. I've got this referral kit. It's a book or it's a webinar, or it's a live seminar, whatever it is that you can turn around and share. And so that's a way to do this at scale. And so we've seen all kinds of crazy numbers done, in very short periods of time where you can hundreds and thousands of referrals are delivered.
Wow. What I really like that is that it all comes from a place of generosity. You're leading with generosity first by helping a whole bunch of other people get exposure. You don't have an agenda. And I see it as like planting a seed. If you're planting seeds all over the place and you then use that as a starting point of a relationship, and then of course you've got to keep in touch and continue to add value to those people. But eventually, as you say, those relationships are going to blossom, and when you do have something that's of value to their audience, then that law of reciprocity kicks in, and they're going to be much more inclined to give you a shot and have a look at your material. And then if it's a good fit for their audience and can add value, then as you say, that huge scale can occur from this exact system. Steve, thanks for joining me on the show today. Do you have any final words of wisdom or anything else you'd like to get off your chest that you haven't mentioned so far?
Well, my mission with all of this is to change the way that referrals are done, because I've owned two businesses. Both of them were in industries where it was long sales cycle, high dollar, high trust, difficult to sell, and really difficult to get people to refer me because most of the time they didn't understand what it was that we did and who really would be a good referral for us. And I know that there are an awful lot, maybe the majority of businesses that are in that same situation. There's an easier way. And really, I want folks to know that, you can go get the book. It's, like $10 on Amazon. It's not a big investment. And you can go to our site and we've got a free course that pretty much explains all of this as well. But wherever you can get it and apply some of these ideas because they make a huge difference. And you don't have to do them all. What we're finding is that people are taking, 10% of it or 20% of it and going and getting really good results really quickly.
And what's the website that people can find that information, Stephen, and how can people connect with you?
Sure. Well, they can find the book you can go to Amazon in any country, and it's available there on Kindle and in paperback. And we just launched a new 6-part free training course, and we've got a special link just for your listeners. They can go to unstoppableceo.net/Blue Wire, and they can go and get the free course there, and we'll walk them through everything that they need to know.
Awesome. That is very generous of you, Steve. I'll be sharing that with all of our readers and listeners. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've got tremendous value from your book. It was an enjoyable read as well, but incredibly practical and incredibly valuable. And for me, that reverse prospecting concept is just incredibly, incredibly powerful. So thank you, and you have a great rest of the evening.
Yeah, my pleasure. And thank you for having me on. This has been a lot of fun.
Likewise. And that wraps up my interview with Steve Gordon. Now, in terms of valuable take-homes, what really jumped out at me was that concept of reverse prospecting. And what a powerful, powerful technique that he talks about in that show. So to recap, printing out a list of contacts that one of your customers knows, and all this information's clearly available on LinkedIn, and sitting down with them and saying, here's a list of people that you're taking 2 copies, saying here's a list of people that you're connected with, who on this list would benefit from my referral kit. So whether that's a book or a piece of flagship content or whatever, you then sit down with your customer or your friend and then highlight the people who would benefit from that piece of information. And then what you can do, as he's saying, is just literally send them, whether it's in the post or via Kindle or via email, that valuable piece of content and say that such and such asked me to send this to you because they thought it might be valuable to them. And then you leave it at that, because that flagship content or that book or that piece of content is going to tell the story for you. And if they are the right match for you and your business or your service or your product, then they have the calls to action in the content to actually make contact with you. So very, very powerful technique there. And LinkedIn, of course, is an absolute goldmine for facilitating that. And of course, that wouldn't have been as easy back in the day before LinkedIn, although it would still work because you just have to ask the person who fits this criteria that you know that might benefit from this piece of content. But now totally easy and straightforward with LinkedIn. And of course, don't forget to download Steve's 6-part training course at unstoppableceo.net/bluewire. Thank you for listening to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. It was brought to you by our book called Web Marketing That Works. And the gift, as I mentioned at the start, is the 33 free marketing templates. And you can download those at bluewiremedia.com.au/book. The intent, as always, is to deliver actionable advice. So I'd love to know your feedback, questions, or guest suggestions. Please drop me a line. If you've got something to contribute, adam.franklin@bluewiremedia.com.au, or simply tweet me at Franklin_Adam. If you enjoyed the show, and I hope that you did, I'd love it if you could leave us a review on iTunes. Until next time, see you later.